Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to learn how we can make quotes. Now, the last lesson we learned about the plain form, and the plain form is necessary in order to make quotes in Korean. For example, you can use it to say things like, Billy said he is tired. Or, I said, don't start yet. I asked if you're thirsty. He said, let's go. Did you say pizza? So we're going to learn about how to make quotes, and the way that you can make a quote will actually depend on whether the original quote was a question or a suggestion like saying let's do something, or a command like saying do it, or if it was just a statement meaning neither of those three. First, let's learn the basic form for quoting a statement or just what someone said. To do that, conjugate the plain form of any verb. Then attach 고. And finally, add the verb 말하다, meaning to speak, and conjugate it. However, this can be and is most often just shortened to 하다. For example, 저는 드라마를 좋아한다고 했어요. I said I like dramas. Note that the verbs 이다 to be and 아니다 to not be are exceptions. 이다 will become conjugated as 이라고 after a consonant or 라고 after a vowel. And 아니다 will become 아니라고. For example, 저도 외국인이라고 했어요. I said I'm also a foreigner. And one more thing, in fact, not only can you shorten 말하다 to just 하다, the 하다 itself is also optional. This means that you can make quotes that will simply end with 고요, or in casual speech, just 고. So let's look at some examples of that. 시간이 없다고 말했어요? This could become 시간이 없다고요? Did you say you don't have time? 너무 비싸다고 했어요. This could become 너무 비싸다고요. I said it's too expensive. 영어를 잘한다고 했어? This could become 영어를 잘한다고? Did you say you speak English well? 물이라고 했어요. This could become 물이라고요. I said water. And this is because the verb that follows the quoting form 고 is only added just to describe how someone said something. It's completely optional and can even be changed to other verbs, as we'll see soon. Okay, there are a few more quoting forms that we still need to learn, but just using this one, let's learn how we can say our name when we're introducing ourselves in just one more way. To do that, first say 저는, followed by your name. Then attach 이라고 if your name ends with a consonant, or attach 라고 if your name ends with a vowel. This form literally means, as for me, I say, and then your name. And it's just one more way that you can tell someone your name. For example, 저는 석진이라고 해요. My name is 석진. Or 저는 윤기라고 해요. My name is 윤기. Next, we're going to learn how we can make quotes of something that somebody asked. So to quote something that somebody asked you, not just something that somebody said, use the 냐고 form instead. Here's how to use that. Get the verb stem and attach 냐고. Then add the verb 하다 and conjugate it like before. Or instead you can add the verb 물어보다, which means to ask. For example, 제가 피아노를 잘 치냐고 물어봤어요? Did you ask me if I play piano well? Note that if the verb stem ends with lir, remove the lir and attach 냐고. For example, 살다, to live, would become 사냐고. Or if the verb stem ends with a piup, remove the piup and attach 우, then 냐고. For example, 맵다, to be spicy, would become 매우냐고. And 이다, to be, will become 이냐고 after a consonant, or 냐고 after a vowel. Now, we'll do some more examples of all of these forms in a moment, but next, let's learn how we can make quotes for something that somebody told someone to do, or something that somebody commanded. To do that, get the verb stem and attach 으라고 if it ends in a consonant, or attach 라고 if it ends in a vowel. Then add the verb 하다 and conjugate it like before. For example, 불을 끄라고 했어요. I said turn off the light, as in I told someone to turn it off. Or if the verb stem ends with a lir, just attach 라고. So the verb 살다 would become 살라고. Or if the verb stem ends with a piup, remove the piup and attach 우, then attach 라고. So 굽다, to bake, would become 구라고. And the last quoting form that we're going to learn is when you're quoting something that somebody suggested to do. So when you're quoting what somebody said to let's do, for that, use the 자고 ending. Here's how to use it. Get the verb stem and attach 자고. Then add the verb 하다 and conjugate it just like before. For example, 떡볶이를 먹으러 가자고요? Did you say let's go eat 떡볶이? So if this is your first time seeing those four forms, it might be a lot to take in at once, but let's just do some example sentences so you can see how it's used. 그 장소가 어디에 있다고 했어요? Where did you say is that place? 제가 사랑한다고 말했어요. I said I love you. 제 남자친구가 바보라고요? 누가 그렇게 말했어요? Did you say my boyfriend is an idiot? Who said so, or who said that? You can use the adverb 그렇게, which means like that or just that, to say things like say so or say that, or even think so or think that. 그게 말이 되냐고요? I asked, does that make sense? 말이 되다 is a common idiom that means to make sense. The opposite is 말도 안 되다, to not make sense. 통역하기가 복잡하냐고요? 아니면 번역하기가 복잡하냐고요? Did you ask if translating speaking or translating writing is complicated? 저를 쳐다보지 말라고요. I said, don't stare at me. When making a negative command, such as I said don't, use the 지 말다 ending, which will become 지 말라고. 파리를 빨리 잡으라고 했어요. I said, quickly catch the fly. 내일 장 보러 가자고요? Did you say, let's go shop for groceries tomorrow? 그냥 거짓말을 하자고. I said, let's just lie. Let's talk for a second about the topic marker and subject marker when you're making quotes. You might have noticed that whoever is saying the quote will be marked often with the topic marker, and whoever or whatever the quote is about will be marked by the subject marker. This is not a rule. The topic marker simply marks the topic of a conversation or a sentence. So here, the topic is yourself. As for me, this is what I think. This is what I'm saying. And the subject marker simply marks the subject of an action verb or a descriptive verb. However, this tends to be the most common way that you'll find. For example, 저는 김치가 맛있다고 했어요. I said that kimchi is delicious. This sentence is much more natural than saying 제가 김치는 맛있다고 했어요, which would mean something like I said, as for kimchi, it's delicious, and sounds unnatural. Okay, so let's do some practice using all of the forms that we've learned today in a conversation. Here we have two people, 예은 and 유빈. First, 예은 says, 어제 선미 씨를 만났죠? Yesterday you met 선미, right? 선미 씨가 뭐라고 했어요? What did 선미 say? 선미 씨는 석진 씨를 절대로 안 만날 거라고 했어요. Note here, 절대로, meaning never, is only used with negative verbs. And in the future tense, the 것이다 form can become 것이라고 or just 거라고. So, 선미 said that she will not ever or never meet 석진. 안 만난다고요? Did you say that she won't meet him? 왜 그렇게 말했을까요? Why could she have said that? Or why could she have said so? Note that the 가요 verb ending can also be attached to past tense verb stems, such as here. 말했을까요? 몰라요. I don't know. 왜 안 만날 거냐고 물어볼까요? Shall I ask why you will not meet him? 아니요. No. 석진 씨한테 전화하라고 해요. Tell her to call 석진. 대신에 우리가 석진 씨를 만나러 갈까요? Instead, shall we go to meet 석진? 따로 만나러 가자고요? Are you saying let's go to meet him separately? 네, 지금 만나러 가자고요. Yes, I am saying let's go to meet him now.
어제 선미 씨를 만났죠? 선미 씨가 뭐라고 했어요? 선미 씨는 석진 씨를 절대로 안 만날 거라고 했어요. 안 만난다고요? 왜 그렇게 말했을까요? 몰라요. 왜 안 만날 거냐고 물어볼까요? 아니요. 석진 씨한테 전화하라고 해요. 대신에 우리가 석진 씨를 만나러 갈까요? 따로 만나러 가자고요? 네. 지금 만나러 가자고요.
But before we go, here's an important note about using 주다, meaning to give, along with the quoting form 으라고. And that is, whenever it's used in this form, it can either become 주라고 or 달라고. Here's how that works. Use 달라고 when the speaker is also the person who is receiving something. Or use 주라고 when the speaker is not the person who is receiving something. For example, 저는 민우 씨에게 주라고 했어요. I said give it to 민우. Here, I am saying it, but I am not the one who's getting it. Instead, 민우 is getting it, so I'm using 주라고. Or 저는 달라고 했어요. I said give it to me. Here, I am also the one who's receiving it, so use 달라고. The same thing applies when you're using 주다 after a conjugated action verb. For example, 저는 해달라고 했어요. I said do it for me. Here, I'm getting the action of doing something as well, so use 달라고 here too. So today we learned several new quoting forms that we can use for making statements or questions or suggestions and commands. Practice all of these before moving on, and I'll see you again in the next lesson. 그럼 다음에 또 봐!